I just pressed the let's go live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up. All across the fruited plain of the internet, before we go ahead and get started, it is a very beautiful Friday, and we want to make sure that the tubes are connected before we start rambling off into oblivion. And it looks like they're alive and well, which is tremendous news, which means I can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney at the R&R Law Group, located in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona. And today, we are talking about the entire country seemingly bracing for impact. We are waiting for a video to drop in the police beating, death, murder of Tyre Nichols, which we're going to talk a lot about. And this is not a local story. You know, sometimes these things are just sort of local news. This has the warnings coming from the entire executive branch of the federal government, including Christopher Wray, Merrick Garland, Karine Jean-Pierre. We also have the Memphis police chief. We've got everybody just saying, are we appropriately bracing for impact because the riots might be coming? A lot of rumors that this video is very, very bad. So we're going to see what Christopher Wray had to say about it. We're going to go through the story and unpack it. We're not going to watch the video here. And my understanding is it's not public yet anyways, but you may want to exercise additional discretion based upon what we're going to see. So we'll talk all about that. Then we're going to turn our attention over to the White House and see what they have to say about this document situation. Because you know David Axelrod, he is a very estimable, if you're a Democrat, somebody who helped Barack Obama get elected, and he's been very powerful in Democratic circles for a long time. And he is weighing in on this document saga from Joe Biden. And he says, you know, there actually is a there. Joe Biden said there wasn't anything there. And it turns out there is. So we got a bunch of questions about that from the media today. Karine Jean-Pierre asked about the article. She's like, you know, David Axelrod is like your hero. So how do you feel about that, Karine? The president is flying out to Camp David today, but then strangely, he's only going there for like a night, and then he's flying back over to Delaware for one night, and he's flying back out. So the media was asking him about this. Why is he taking a little side trip over to his Delaware residence? Is that a document trip? Probably. We got some Doocy time we'll take a look at, and we have an article about some senators who are very upset that they're not getting any access to the Biden document stuff at all. We've got Mark Warner, who's a Democrat, and Marco Rubio, who is a Republican, they're both saying that, look, we are on the Senate Intelligence Committee. We're supposed to get access to all sorts of data to do our, jobs, but the executive branch is not giving them anything. Why not? They're upset about it. There was apparently a meeting with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and she said, you're just not getting anything. So we'll talk about that. Fun clip from Biden where Jill Biden sort of runs interference for him when he gets asked about a second Rehoboth type of viewer, a watch here thing. We'll talk about that. We've also got Congress, who is very busy right now. A lot of different clips that we'll talk about. Kevin McCarthy visited with Elon Musk, and Elon posted about this. We also saw Trey Gowdy had a clip talking about Adam Schiff. AOC was talking about being in New York while she was on the street outside of D.C., standing outside the Capitol building. James Comer sent a letter over to the Department of Homeland Security demanding to interview some immigration officials. Marjorie Taylor-Green, her amendment to refill the strategic oil reserves passed, and Ted Lieu and AOC were very unhappy about that. So we'll talk a little climate change, and then we'll wrap up the show with Rand Paul, who is very fun as usual. Karine says, we're not negotiating on this debt limit stuff, idiot Republicans. And Rand Paul said, you better think again over there, Karine, because we're not raising anything. So we'll go through all of that as well. But boy, you can see there's a lot to get to today. And if you want to be a part of the show, well, the best place to do that is by heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have an amazing community over there. We do member-only morning streams, and sometimes it's in the afternoons for some people sometimes, but it's additional content. And if you want to come take a look at our awesome community, you'll find it at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Also, thank you for supporting our amazing sponsors, which help support the show. Our friends at 4patriots.com is a good place to get your survival food, your survival gear. You can just get this stuff and just put it in a closet. Good for 25 years. Code Robert, get you 10% off. Also, our friends over at Goldco is where you can go to robertlikesgold.com. And it's true, I do like gold. You can go there and you can protect your savings with retirement or your retirement with gold and silver. So go to robertlikesgold.com. Our friends at Brickhouse Nutrition is where you'll find Field of Greens, which is where you can be ultra healthy and extra vibrant. Get your daily greens at fieldofgreens.com and save 15% off with code Robert. And of course, our law firm, the R&R Law Group, which is where we help good people charged with crimes find safety, clarity, and hope, not only in their cases, but beyond that, in their lives. We offer free case evaluations. You'll find us online at rrlawaz.com. All right, so let's get right into the news of the day because we are getting ready for it. Bracing for impact as the video for Tyre Nichols is about to drop. We've got the entire federal government issuing warnings now, including Christopher Wray, Merrick Garland, the White House, local Memphis police chief, and others. The video is apparently very brutal. We're going to not watch the video because it is not out and it's not appropriate, but we are going to sort of piece together what is happening here and see how the White House is responding, because this is a little bit different than some of the other cases like this that we've talked about here. Why? You'll notice the individual who is deceased, Tyre Nichols, may he rest in peace and may his family find peace, is an African-American black male, as you'll see. Now, traditionally, we'll see sort of a different race dynamic in a case like this, but that's not the situation here. These are the police officers who were responsible. They're fired and they are charged with murder and other crimes for the death. And so this introduces an interesting little new dynamic for some reason, right? Oftentimes these cases are all about race. And I've done a lot here to say that I don't think that they are about race. I think that they are about police versus everybody else. The powerful versus the powerless. Big government versus small citizenry. But every time there's one of these ordeals, it turns into this big race catastrophe and everybody's killing each other over the color of their skin. But we'll see how this unfolds. Now, before we take a look at the background and what happened here, this is coming out of Memphis, Tennessee. The original incident, the death was on January 10th. He was stopped 3 days before, beaten badly, put in the hospital, and he died a few days after the fact. We'll take a look at the background from Wikipedia, which gives us a nice summation of what happened. But first, let's understand sort of what the federal government is saying about this, because it is not looking good. FBI Director Christopher Wray issues a very stern warning saying he watched the Tyre Nichols video, and it is not good at all. For some reason, let me turn this audio up. Let me see where my audio is. There it is. You can hear that.
What happened in Memphis is obviously tragic. I have seen the video. What happened in Memphis is obviously tragic. I have seen the video myself, and I will tell you, I was appalled.
Yikes.
I'm struggling to find a stronger word, but I will just tell you I was appalled. The FBI, working with the Justice Department, takes great pride in our color of law investigations, and we will pursue, as has already been announced, an investigation here, and we'll do it professionally, without fear or favor, by the book, as I think is expected of us. As far as preparation, all of our field offices have been alerted to work closely with their state and local partners, including in particular, of course, in Memphis, in the event of something getting out of hand. But I would just add my voice to the attorney generals and to the families to whom my heart goes out, that there's a right way and a wrong way in this country to express being upset or angry about something, and we need to make sure that if there is that sentiment expressed here, it's done in the right way.
All right, so you can see he is apparently concerned that this is so bad that it's going to cause a reaction. And so let's turn our attention over to Wikipedia to see what they have for us on this story. They tell us that the death of Tyre Nichols occurred on January 10th. He was a 29-year-old black man, died 3 days after he was stopped by 5 black Memphis police officers. The stop was initiated due to a police claim saying they observed reckless driving, led to an initial altercation in which officers deployed pepper spray, followed Nichols, and he was trying to run away. Within a short distance, there was a second altercation in which Tyre was tased, beaten, and pepper sprayed by Memphis police. Officers that left him with grievous injuries, according to Tennessee prosecutors. The 5 officers you see here, Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin, Desmond Mills, Justin Smith, they were fired from the police department. 2 Memphis firefighters who respond were ultimately relieved of duty and ultimately fired. Okay, so even the firefighters who showed up after the fact were fired. Wow. An autopsy commissioned by his family found that extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating was the cause of death. 5 officers involved were arrested, charged with murder, assault, and misconduct. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the DOJ have both opened investigations. Tyre worked for FedEx. Police officers all had 3 to 6 years of experience. All were born or members of a 50-person unit known as the Scorpion Team. Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. That sounds like a very peaceful group. The Scorpion Group to return peace in our neighborhoods. That's nice. A group of undercover officers who were assembled in October 2021 as a response team to deal with serious crimes. The traffic stop occurred 8:30 p.m. January 7th near the intersection. Gosh, I was thinking about January 6th and insurrection. At the intersection of Rains Roads. The police allege that he was pulled over for reckless driving, reportedly about 250 feet from his house. According to police, after an initial confrontation with the police, he fled on foot. A second confrontation occurred. Officers caught up, tried to arrest him. Following the confrontations, Nichols complained of shortness of breath. He was taken to the hospital listed in critical condition, dying from his injuries 3 days later. Relatives said officers involved were in an unmarked vehicle. He experienced cardiac arrest and kidney failure because of the officers beating him. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said that there was excessive force. They announced the officers would face administrative action. Later, they would be fired. Police said that this was a failing of basic humanity. She was confused by the aggression, said that there was a disregard for his life, and said that it's the same, if not worse, than Rodney King. Memphis Mayor Strickland said video footage would be released later in January. We're getting close to that. First, once the police department's internal investigation is finished, then it will be released. Nichols' family attorney said that he was used as a human piñata by 5 officers. The 5 officers were arrested, charged with second-degree murder, aggravated assault, aggravated kidnapping, official misconduct, official oppression. All 5 have been posted bail and have been released. Joe Biden spoke with the family, and the police-worn body camera is set for public release on the evening of January 27th. Oh, man, that's tonight, isn't it? So it's coming out soon. And so everybody is bracing for impact over at the White House. You'll see Merrick Garland is in on this as well. He is here explaining that he has not seen the video, but he is well aware of what it contains, and he's a little bit concerned about it as well.
I've not seen the video, but I have been briefed on that video. It is deeply disturbing. Let me say horrific from the descriptions I've been given.
Yikes.
I want to give my deepest condolences to Tyre Nichols' family. I can't imagine the feelings that parents must feel under these circumstances. The United States Attorney has met personally with the family to express the department's condolences and express his own. We have opened last week a federal civil rights investigation under the color of law statute, which we will be investigating. We have been working in support of the state and local law enforcement in this matter, and we will continue to do so. I do want to say, and I want to repeat what the family has said, that expressions of concern when people see this video, we urge that they be peaceful and nonviolent. That's what the family has urged, and that, of course, is what the Justice Department urges as well.
Yeah, yikes. So it sounds like it's going to be pretty bad. He says, I haven't even watched it, okay, but I have been briefed on it, and, oh, man, it's going to be bad. So they brought them both out, right? That's how you sort of know this thing's not looking good. When they bring out both the FBI and the DOJ, and they're both like, all right, look, we've done everything we can. We're investigating this, civil rights, everything's opened up. Just please don't burn down the country. Then you know it's probably not going to be good. But we are asking ourselves now, because we've covered other cases here, in particular Derek Chauvin, which, as we've talked about, I said was an egregious case of Derek Chauvin being made to be the scapegoat for all of America's past racism on one particular person on one incident. It felt like the whole country was just like, well, I guess that's the guy responsible for racism. So I guess how many years? 23 years. All right. Even though many of the facts of that case, in my humble defense lawyer opinion, absolutely showed innocence, or let's say at least not guilt beyond a reasonable doubt standard, right? We saw that George Floyd had arterial sclerosis and he had all sorts of other heart problems. The state's own medical examiner said that his heart giving out was a cause of death. It had nothing to do with asphyxiation. It was even on the medical report. So right, we see how these things can get spiraled out of control. Like one narrative about, general police abuse can turn into this whole thing about, endless racism. And we focus the entire country like a laser beam on one particular case. And once that's done, nothing ever happens to the rest of the industry, the justice system. Does anything change? No, right? We just say, okay, well, I guess we just pick one particular sacrificial lamb, one scapegoat, use that case for political expediency, and then put that person right in the garbage bin. And so we look at this case now, and we're looking at it through that same lens. Is this going to be treated differently? Are we going to see less news stories about this? What's the deal? And so we asked police chief about that from Memphis. In fact, Don Lemont went over there and had a conversation. I believe that's Don Lemont. I think Don Lemont had a conversation with the Memphis police chief, and she is explaining that, you know what, this really isn't about race. Probably never was. This is only about police versus the people.
5 black officers. You're a black police chief in a black community. What do you make of the race of the officers and what that says to the community and to the country about the policing, the care?
Well, I think it takes off the table that issues and problems in law enforcement is about race, and it is not. It's about human dignity, integrity, accountability, and the duty to protect our community. And as this video will show you, it doesn't matter who's wearing the uniform, that we all have that same responsibility. So
for human decency, it doesn't matter, right? And I've been practicing for years, and I've seen all sorts of police brutality against people of all different colors, all different shapes and sizes, all different ethnicities, different religions, different genders, different orientations, seen it all. And guess what happens a lot of the time? Sometimes they match. Yeah, that's right. Sometimes white cops beat up on white people, and sometimes black cops beat up on black people. And the same pattern exists across all the different intersections of this interesting world that we live in. But what happens when it's a white cop and a black cop? It becomes about that only, right? Only about the race, essentially. It's white cops beating up on black people. And here, right, I think this woman gave an outstanding answer. I would love to know what her answer was for, Derek Chauvin or something like that. Like if this would have been the same situation, if they said, okay, I mean, okay, just change the race now. What if it was 5 white cops on 1 black male? Would she give that same answer? I don't know. But that's not the fact that is in front of us. The fact that is in front of us right now is this current situation, and I think this answer is perfectly appropriate. What I have seen, what my experience has been, is that it is not, look, there is racism in every institution in this country, right? All people have different feelings about different people in this world. There are some racists out there in this world. That's true. Is it this cataclysmic end of America that they tell us it is? I highly, highly have not experienced that in my life, or speaking to other people who are, let's say, not white, right? All right. So the point is here, she's going to turn this, or she's going to do, in my opinion, going to explain what this is appropriately, that it's not about necessarily a race thing at all. This is about powerful versus the powerless. And here it is.
About human dignity, integrity, accountability, and the duty to protect our community. And as this video will show you, it doesn't matter who's wearing the uniform, that we all have that same responsibility. So it takes race off the table, but it does indicate to me that bias might be a factor also in the manner in which we engage the community.
Yeah. All right. So great answer.
You're a black police chief in a black community.
All right. We're doing a refresh because that video kept playing in the background, but I think a great answer from that police chief, very well reasoned, and I think very appropriate for what we're dealing with. Anyways, this goes over to the White House. They're also a little bit panicked about this. So Karine Jean-Pierre started off the press briefing with a statement about what the White House says about all of this. And let's listen in.
You good? I want to start by saying a word about the death of Tyre Nichols. Last night, the president extended condolences to the family of Tyre Nichols and to the entire Memphis community, and he addressed the pain this is causing across America, as once again we grapple with the fact that fatal encounters with law enforcement are disparately impacting brown and black people. As the Department of Justice conducts a full investigation and state authorities continue their work, the president has joined Tyre's family in calling for protests to remain peaceful. Last year, the president called on Congress to send the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act to his desk. When they didn't, he
happen.
signed an executive order that included stricter use of force standards and accountability, provisions for federal law enforcement, as well as measures to strengthen accountability at the state and local level. Today, we all must recommit ourselves to the critical work that must be done to advance meaningful reforms. The president continues to believe that in order to deliver real change, we must have accountability when law enforcement officers violate their oaths. And we need to build lasting trust between law enforcement, the vast majority of whom wear the badge honorably, and the communities they are sworn to serve and to protect. Tyre's death is a painful reminder that we must do more to ensure that our criminal justice system lives up to the promise of fair and impartial justice, equal treatment, and dignity for all. Today is International Holocaust.
All right, so that was her statement. Now, again, I get irritated when there are double standards applied, and I guess it's just inevitable. I guess here's the point. The White House is asked about their preparation for this. We remember here on this channel that back in 2020, when the George Floyd story was going on, and we covered that at length, how much of a political issue that story became, right? It reoriented the whole country, and everybody had a lot of very strong opinions about that. And so, there was a scapegoat there. They blamed whole sections of the country were deemed to be responsible for that. And so we're trying to see if they're going to identify what the responsibility is here or what they're going to do about it. They promised us, part of the reason they got elected, I think, is because they were promising all sorts of police reform, and they promised their people they were going to defund the police, and all of this stuff was going to be done. And then as soon as they got in, they said, oh no, we're not going to defund the police at all. You people are crazy. And they said, oh yeah, I guess we're not going to do that anymore. So the media is asking about this. First question to Karine is, are you guys prepared for the riots? What is happening here? Is there going to be any ability to stop what you anticipate is coming?
I know there's been coordination on the law enforcement level, but have there been any conversations you can tell us about between the White House and state officials or governors about how to handle the possibility of unrest this weekend?
So a couple of things there. I just want to reiterate what the family and the president have called for, which is peaceful protests for people to please protest peacefully. That is something that the president will continue to call on. And he joined, as I just mentioned, his family. The White House has been in coordination with the relevant agencies to ensure they prepare if protests become violent. This coordination is standard practice and in keeping with what the administration has done in other instances, including the anticipation, as you all know, for the Dobbs decision, the trucker convoy protests, and Election Day. Those are three examples that I can share with you at this moment. Administration
Trucker
officials
convoy and the
have
Election
been
Day.
and will continue to be in touch with state and local officials on the ground as we watch the next few hours develop.
Has the president spoken with the Nichols family directly, or does he plan to?
Obviously, when a tragedy happens like this, the president always wants to extend personally his heartfelt condolences to the family. I don't have a call to read out or call schedule at this time, but again, I would refer you to the statement yesterday. But our hearts are with Tyre Nichols' family and the Memphis community as well.
And then can you confirm a report by our friends at Reuters that Elon Musk met with Mitchell?
Oh yeah, we're going to get there in a minute. So evidently Biden hasn't really had a conversation, or maybe he has, we don't know, but asking about the riots, in contact with all of the local counterparts in all the various states, and we'll see if anything happens. Hopefully not. This reporter asked Karine, all right, well, you're asking for nonviolence. I mean, we heard it from Christopher Wray. We heard it from Attorney General Merrick Garland. Everybody's saying, can you please be peaceful out there? Once you see this video, you're going to be very upset about it, but can you just stay calm? He's saying, you're saying that, but do you think it's going to work?
You got this a little bit in the statement, but in terms of his call for protests, nonviolence, is he confident that it feels like that's where things are going at this moment in time, and how will he ensure that that message continues, I guess, to be durable over the course of the next couple of days?
Yeah, look, he called for peaceful protest. He joined the family. I think people should listen to the family as they call for peaceful protest as well. And I think that's really important. And we understand the outrage people have currently, and how hurt and painful this is. But we're going to continue to say violence is unacceptable. And so, I just laid out a moment ago of what we are trying to do here. The president has met with the agencies. His administration has been very much in touch with local and state officials to do everything that we can to prevent that. But again, the president has always been very clear when it comes to violence not being the answer, and making sure that when people protest, it's peaceful.
All right, we'll see if that happens or not, but they are, obviously bracing for impact. So another question came in from this fella. I believe his name is Joey, and he asked if the president himself had seen the video, since we know Christopher Wray saw it. It's brutal. We know Merrick Garland didn't watch it, but he was briefed on it. How about the president himself? Did Joe Biden watch the Tyre Nichols video?
Okay, Joey.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate it. I just want to clarify, the FBI director has said he has seen the video of Tyre Nichols, said he was appalled. Has the president been briefed about the contents of the video, or has he seen the video footage himself already?
Well, I can tell you the president has not. He's been briefed, but he has not seen the video. Nor has anyone at the White House seen the video, so I can confirm that. But look, he has been briefed on what occurred and what he knows, what he's able to be briefed on from his team, but he has not seen the video.
Was it the FBI or was it?
I don't have a specific, clearly senior administration officials have. I don't have the specific name or person to lay out for you.
On a separate topic regarding the debt ceiling.
All right, so a lot of questions about, obviously what's in the video. It's probably going to be released any minute now. And so we've got a couple more clips from two other questions in the media. And then we're going to talk about this article that came out from Van Jones. Van Jones is explaining to all of us that even though these police officers who did this heinous, apparently, beating, even though they were black, they still might have been driven by racism. Oh, well, that's interesting. And you know who Van Jones is. He is the person who got $100 million from Jeff Bezos for some reason. This fella over here. And we're going to read through that in a minute because I'm interested to learn about how that was a racist thing. But I'm sure I'll be educated about that very shortly. But first, let's talk about our friends over at fieldofgreens.com, because all of this dreary news can really deplete you of your energy. We want to make sure that you stay healthy and fortified. And as you know, there's been a lot of, maybe, I don't know about you, but maybe a little bit of extra pounds got put on over the pandemic era, over the holiday break and so on. You've seen all the ads for the fad diets and the pills, this, that, and the other thing. They don't work, right? You know what does? Eating healthy. Your servings, daily requirements of fruits and vegetables, eating that every day. If you're healthy and you get some energy and you can exercise, I imagine the weight just falls right off. But I know vegetables and fruit, who's got time to prepare for that? It's busy. You've got a lot going on. Solution, fieldofgreens.com. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition, reboots your metabolism, helps you burn calories faster, lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Look, you're going to feel healthier, you're going to look great. But the best proof that you're going to need is when you go to your doctor at the next visit and he says, woo, you look fabulous. What the heck have you been doing? Keep it up. Let's get you started today. Go over to fieldofgreens.com, enter promo code Robert, and get 15% off your first order. Very simple. Fieldofgreens.com. And you're just going to be bursting from your hair with energy and green goodness. Your superfood is available at fieldofgreens.com. All right. Now, let's turn our attention over to the remainder questions that came out of the press briefing room. The first one from this woman asks Karine, Karine, you and Joe Biden here took office and you promised a whole bunch of stuff. One of those things was George Floyd bill, criminal justice reform. You were going to work really hard to make sure this type of stuff doesn't ever happen again. But it's happening again. Why is that?
Thanks. On police reform, does the president regret not making it more of a top priority in his work with Congress over these last 2 years? You mentioned how he called on Congress to pass the George Floyd Act, but it didn't seem like one of his big priority legislative pushes.
I have to say I disagree. One of the things that the president said when he walked into the administration, the multiple crises that we've had to deal with, that the country was dealing with at the time, as obviously there was COVID, there was the economy because of COVID, there was climate change, and the other one was dealing with the racial unrest that we had seen across the country that we've all went through and many of you spoke to. And he took action when Congress was not able to get the George Floyd Policing Act done. He took action, as I just laid out. He took action by doing taking executive action and doing everything that he could with the tools that he had. So he did take it very seriously. And he's going to continue to be very vocal. He's made speeches about this over the past couple of years, and he's talked to Congress and has asked Congress to take action. He has spoken to many times to the leaders in Congress who put forth, like Cory Booker and others who put forth that piece of legislation, and our team will continue to have those conversations. But again, by taking executive action, I think we believe showed the president's seriousness on this.
All right, so they have made some changes, made some executive decisions, and some things have moved around, but it's still happening. And so the question, I guess, is why. They promised that they were going to run and solve all of these issues. It was all about white racism and Trump MAGA insurrectionists. They didn't have an insurrection at that time, but it was the same type of narrative. So if this is going to be such a bad video and such a big problem, why is Joe Biden leaving? If the FBI director, the DOJ, if they're all worried that this might cause a catastrophe around the country, why is he hopping on a plane and flying out of D.C.?
Any chance the president would delay his departure to Camp David tonight in order to see the video release when it's scheduled? And because Camp David is one of the places where it's actually difficult for the president to immediately address the nation if there were to be a concern, do you expect that he may want to say something in a live way? He's already spoken through you and he's spoken on paper, but do you anticipate that this is the kind of circumstance where he'd want to emphasize that by appearing on camera?
So I don't have any changes for you on his schedule today. I will say, like you just mentioned, you heard from him last night in clear terms and expressing his condolences to the family and the people of Memphis, and he's going to continue to call for meaningful reforms. He said that last night, and he said that many times before, and he's going to continue to call for protests to remain peaceful. I just don't have anything to share at this time.
That is Karine Jean-Pierre. Again, not much there. President Biden is leaving to go to Camp David. And as we are recording, you'll take a look at this. Look, breaking news happening now. Officials released the video of Memphis police officers' encounter with Tyre Nichols. You can watch that over on CNN, apparently. Now, they give us some details on it. We are not going to watch it here together, but we have some updates on what is happening from CNN. They tell us the following. They tell us the city of Memphis has released the graphic video to the public. He died 3 days after the arrest. They have a link if you'd like to watch it and then go how to manage your stress. They can explain how you can manage your stress. We also have 5 former officers have been arrested. 29-year-old. The police chief, this is not looking good for, look at this. The police chief said the department has been unable to find anything that substantiated the probable cause for reckless driving. Let's click this one. Hang on. Let's see if that's going to play or not. All right. So here you can see this statement is unable to find anything that substantiated the probable cause for reckless driving. What that means is It sounds like the police made up a reason to go and pull him over. They don't have a basis for the traffic stop. There was no probable cause to pull him over in the first place. Yikes. So that's pretty bad news. So I'm sure many people will want to go watch that. We will not do that here. There will be many people who will not want to watch that, and that is understandable as well because he is now dead. These things are absolute tragedies, and so we will continue to think about and pray for his family and everybody who is, hurt by these things. They are like bombs go off. The officers' families are all wrecked. The community is wrecked. This whole thing is just a catastrophe. It makes me sick, actually, when we have to talk about this stuff. Now, Van Jones, you know who he is. He's the person who got $100 million from Jeff Bezos. He's apparently, America's race whisperer or something like that. But he is telling us exactly what his take is on this. He says, opinion, the police who killed Tyre Nichols were black, but they might still have been driven by racism. Let's see what this looks like. He says 3 decades ago, when 4 white officers were videotaped beating Rodney King, the public outcry was heard around the world. In fact, I got arrested the first time in my life during protests that followed. What happened to King was horrifying, but at least he survived. Tyre Nichols did not. The 29-year-old black man died earlier this month after a police traffic stop. According to preliminary results, extensive bleeding caused by severe beating are what caused him to pass. 5 officers were indicted. By all accounts, Nichols was a good guy. 145-pound skateboarder, Instagram photographer, Starbucks aficionado. Terrible. From the King beating to the murder, they say that so often being white is a part of the story. But the narrative, white cop kills unarmed black man, should never have been the sole lens through which we attempted to understand police abuse. I agree with that. He says it's time for a more nuanced discussion of the way police violence endangers black lives. Yeah, it's definitely not just about white cops beating, black lives. That's not what it's all about. Black people are not immune to anti-black messages. It says one of the sad facts about anti-black racism is that black people ourselves are not immune to its pernicious effects. Society's message that black people are inferior, unworthy, and dangerous is pervasive. Over many decades, numerous experiments have shown that these ideas can infiltrate black minds as well as white. Self-hatred is a real thing. That's why a black store owner might regard customers of his same race with suspicion, but white patrons are treated with deference. Black cops are often socialized in police departments that view certain neighborhoods as war zones. Cops of all colors, including black police officers, internalize those messages. At the end of the day, it's the race of the victim who's brutalized, not the race of the violent cop, he says. All right, so it's sort of not about race, but it is about race, and even black people are racist against other black people. It's not, I guess. All right, these stories, man, are just the worst. All right, so that's Van Jones, and that's the White House, and we'll see what happens. The video is now out, and we'll have to wait and see if there's any recourse. Hopefully, it's nice and peaceful, and people can express their protest amicably out there. We'll see what it has in store for us, and we'll check back in on this next week. All right. Enough of that story. Let's change gears. Talk about something else. What's going on over here? Fed Cure is over there. All right, so we're changing gears now. We're turning off that story. Really irritates me. Let's have a beverage break, my friends. Cheers to everybody else out there on this beautiful Friday. Cheers. I've got a bubbly, sparkling water. Cheers to you, my friends, on this lovely Friday. We've got a whole nother segment here. We're going over to the Biden docs now. All right, my friends. Now we're going to change gears and talk about the Biden docs. The Joe Biden document dilemma continues, and now the very estimable Democrat called David Axelrod, the guy many people might say is responsible for electing Joe Obama or Barack Obama or Joe Biden or many other Democrats that you might know, love, or hate. He is now saying, sorry, Joe, there is a there. There is a big problem, and we're going to talk about it. The media is still diving into this. David Axelrod, a very important political consultant, got brought up today during the press briefing with Karine Jean-Pierre. We'll listen to what the White House had to say before we turn our attention back over to the Senate, because they want to know what was in the Biden documents. They want to know if it had anything to do with Burisma or Hunter Biden or anything else. And they're entitled to know. That's what they do in the Senate. So we'll talk about all of it. But first, before we learn about what David Axelrod, this fella, you know his face, what he said, let's refresh our recollection on who this guy is. There is some background that is provided to us over from Wikipedia. They tell us David Axelrod, American political consultant, former White House official, best known for being the chief strategist for Barack Obama's presidential campaign. After Obama's election, he was appointed to be senior advisor to the president. Left the position in 2011, became a senior strategist for his re-election, joined CNN, and he's been all over the place. Right? He was almost kind of like the Karl Rove of the Bush years, if you remember that. They used to call Karl Rove the architect. And this guy was a very similar individual. And so when he speaks, all the Democrats perk up. We're going to hear from Karine Jean-Pierre. She was actually, I think, a student of his. She worked with him at some point in time. But David wrote an article over at The Atlantic, and he says the following. He says, yes, Mr. President, there is some there, buddy. Axelrod says Biden's team should have been more transparent about his classified documents, but he still thinks the strategy might work out well for him in the end. This article was published January 27th. It says the following from David. He says, crisis communications at its core, it's pretty simple. Discern where the story is going, fully disclose the facts, admit where the mistakes were made, and do it all as quickly and thoroughly as possible. Basically exactly what Mike Pence did. He says, so it's been a little bit confusing to watch Joe Biden's White House deal with the discovery of these documents while he was vice president, stored in various locations, including his garage. He says the impact of the first discovery on November 2nd must have been immediately apparent to Biden's team, given the public uproar about Trump's documents. Even Biden himself said, how could anyone be so irresponsible? Biden rightly noted that documents are marked classified and top secret for a reason, to protect intelligence. Why then did it take months after the first discovery for the White House to acknowledge that Biden too had classified documents in his possession? And why did that acknowledgement come only after a leak to CBS News? Yeah, they didn't tell us about this. They weren't transparent at all. And why did the White House's first disclosure omit that there had been a second discovery of the documents on December 20th, the lie by omission, when Karine Jean-Pierre came out? I think it was on the 9th or the 12th. There have been sporadic additional discoveries announced, adding to a sense of furtiveness and a lack of transparency on Biden's part. Last week, Biden compounded his problems by declaring that when the special counsel investigation is complete, the country will discover that there's no there there. That's what Biden said. Remember, he was standing there with Gavin Newsom, hovering over his shoulder like a little vulture waiting for the presidency. Axelrod says what he likely meant was that this will have found to have been an innocent mistake, probably made by staff as they just shoved documents in the boxes. Same thing that happened with Pence. He says, in Biden's defense, his lawyers, upon discovery of the first set, they did contact the head librarian and surrender the documents. The president's legal team has been cooperating. By contrast, Trump was obstructionary. Still, he says, Biden's comment that there's no there landed clumsily, as there were documents there. So there were documents there. There was something there in his old private office. There is some there. And the Biden White House seemingly have violated every precept: speed, transparency, contrition of crisis communications. They broke every rule under the sun. Here he says, I cut them a little slack here. From the moment the first documents were discovered, Biden's lawyers seized control. They wanted to protect their client from legal ramifications, not political ramifications. Do you believe that for a minute? You believe that they're really worried that Joe Biden's going to get in a bunch of trouble here? It's all politics, which is why the cover-up was more important than the transparency. The politics were a bigger threat than the legalities. That's why they covered it up. If it was the reverse, they would have done what Mike Pence did and just showed us the truth. Mike Pence doesn't have as many political liabilities as they do. And their objective has been to work with the probe and to be transparent. They don't have any choice. They're not, unless they're making a claim. Are they making a claim for the documents? No. Then what choice do they have but to be cooperative? Trump is saying they're my documents. That's the basis for his alleged obstruction. I presume that is why the Biden team didn't acknowledge when the CBS story broke that there was a second set of documents. Axelrod says, well, they quickly learned, however, that although prosecutors disdain disclosures from the subjects of their probes, leaks can still happen. This week, after the FBI searched the president's Delaware home, unnamed sources told CNN that federal investigators had been prepared to issue a warrant if the president had refused, though such a threat proved unnecessary. Let's look at this article. CNN said that there was going to be a warrant. Justice Department was prepared to seek a warrant had Biden not consented to the search. The FBI's unprecedented search of the president's home in Wilmington resulted from high-stakes discussions between the DOJ and Biden's lawyers. Biden's team says we cooperated. For its part, the DOJ said it would conduct the latest search. They were prepared to seek a search warrant. They didn't need one because they were cooperative. Man, they should have raided it. Should have raided it anyways. Go raid it. Because they were already obstructing. I'm not joking about that. They were obstructing it. They should have just gotten the warrant and gone and raided the property. They did that to Trump. Trump said the documents are safe and clear. They're fine. They're my documents. I've got legal claim to them. They're safe and fine. And they went and looked at it. And then they said, nope, you're obstructing and we're going to go take them from you. Literally, the same thing happened with Joe Biden. He said, oh, no, I have the documents. They're safe. DOJ sent him a letter mid-November, said stop searching. They kept searching. They made notice that they found more documents as a result of their additional searches, which they notified the archives about in mid-December. So as soon as the DOJ knew that they were still searching for documents, that was the obstruction. Search warrant should have been executed at that moment. They said, well, they're not following our simple, polite requests to stop searching. So now we have to go make sure the documents are safe and secure. They didn't do that. They did it for Trump. They could have gone and raided his Wilmington house and his Rehoboth house. They would have had the same pretext. Now, the difference here is they like Joe Biden. Okay, that's the only real difference. They don't like Donald Trump. They think he is stealing documents, and he is making a claim over those documents. Joe Biden, though, didn't even make a claim over the documents, all right? There was not even a legal basis for it that his attorneys made. They just said, here it is. So if they know that they should not continue to be in possession, and they're not making a claim for it, and they are disobeying a directive from the DOJ to stop searching for documents, how is that not obstruction, and why did they not institute raids? Merrick Garland defended the DOJ. Justice Department's unhappy with the slow pace of the searches. Yeah, I can imagine that. The Biden document saga began early November. National Archives were notified. Then the DOJ was notified. They wrote a letter to Biden's legal team on November 10th outlining the specific processes and the protocols. Although there was no expectation that more classified documents would be found, they notified them that additional materials were discovered. It took more than 6 weeks after the initial discovery until they searched the house in Rehoboth. The legal team did not alert the DOJ that it had begun to search the homes until after the attorneys discovered the documents in Wilmington. Such notification wasn't required. The lack of advance notice irritated some justice officials. Yeah, and we know that the Washington Post reported that John Lausch or somebody sent a letter over mid-November. So I'm going to go through this and add this to the timeline, but they say that the White House insisted that searches were conducted in coordination with the Justice Department, but it doesn't sound like that's true at all. Doesn't sound like that's true at all. Why were they irritated then? Some were irritated that they didn't get advance notice, so they weren't actually done in coordination at all. This Biden administration is lying through their teeth about this story, and the media is slowly piecing it together. Garland has been kept, and Garland knows it too. Garland defended the DOJ's approach. Yeah, this is bad news. This is why Axelrod is coming out too. He says, it was a gratuitous leak perhaps meant to blunt criticism about political bias at the DOJ and the FBI. Yeah. Biden's team, people like us were screaming about raid, raid, raid. Biden's team appears to be betting that full cooperation and less public conversation will lead to a benign conclusion from special counsel. For now, this is a docudrama. We'll see what the special counsel does. So that's David Axelrod, right? And when you start to lose David Axelrod, you start to lose some other Democrats who are ordinarily on your team. The media starts asking questions about that, which is exactly what happened today during the press briefing. Karine gets asked about David Axelrod's article. David Axelrod says Joe Biden and you, Karine, have really stepped in it. What do you say to that?
Thanks, Karine. David Axelrod, former top staffer for President Obama, wrote in a piece today for The Atlantic that Biden and the White House seemingly have violated every precept, speed, transparency, contrition of crisis communications in relation to the way that you have communicated about the classified documents found in his possession. I'm wondering if you agree with that assessment and your take on that.
Well, look, I know David Axelrod very well. I was part of his I was part of his program that he had at University of Chicago, and I respect him wholeheartedly, and got to work with him during the Obama-Biden administration. He has his opinion. I'm not going to make judgments on that, and he's allowed to share what he thinks. But I will say this, and I'm going to be very careful and prudent here. We take classified information and classified documents very seriously.
Karine!
And the president's team is fully cooperating with the current legal process at this time. I'm just not going to say anything more.
This is not a question about the handling of classified documents. It's a question of communication.
I just answered your question. I just answered your
No.
question.
You have no comment on whether the
I
White House...
literally just answered your question.
No.
But I did. I did.
No.
About whether or not you think the White House has done a good job communicating.
No, but I answered the first part. I answered it in my first part, which is I know David Axelrod. He has every right to have his opinion, and I've known him for a long time. I've worked closely with him, and that's all I'm going to say. Go ahead, Karen.
That's all we're going to say. So David Axelrod blasts her. She worked, sort of learned everything she knows from the guy, and he's not happy with the performance out of the current White House. Now, the media had some other questions, and most of these were being deferred out. We'll go through several of them. This individual tried his best to go back to November. So we just read the article from Van Jones. We read the article from... Axelrod was the one that we just read. And Axelrod said that they're doing a bad job. They're also asking about, what happened on that November 2nd date that caused them to act this way. What was the thinking back then on that day? The media still would love an answer.
Good, Brian.
Thank you, Karine. I want to go back to November 2nd. Why didn't the president go public on November 2nd when he found out from his lawyers that classified documents were found in the
I would refer you to the White House counsel, who has put out statements on this, on their timeline, and speaking to this. My colleagues from the White House counsel has had conversations with many of you, answering questions on this. I would refer you to the White House counsel.
Before there was a federal investigation, he could have gone public at
I
that
would refer
time.
you to the White House counsel. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
That guy's new there. I don't think that he knows that she doesn't answer those questions. It's funny because as soon as he asks that and she punts it, everybody else's hands go up. I don't know if you saw that. Like, watch it right here. This guy's hands go up. He's like, oh, that's a throwaway question. She's not answering that. Call me next.
I would refer you to the White House.
Boom. Hand up. First hand up next. Not answering that one. You see him? He knows how to play this game. He goes, oh, that's going to be a deferral question. Defer to White House counsel. I'm next.
Refer you to the White House
Boom,
counsel.
there it is.
Who has?
He was the first one up, by the way. Nice job. Well done. Very fast. So there are questions about what Joe Biden is doing. Evidently, he's flying to Camp David tonight. Question is, why is he going back over to Delaware just for one simple night? If he's in Camp David, why doesn't he just stay there in Camp David? Why does he just have to get on a plane and fly over to Delaware for one simple night? What's going on over there?
Is there a specific reason the president's leaving Camp David to go to Delaware just for that one night on Sunday?
I don't have anything to preview about what he's going to be doing specifically. All I can tell you is that he's going to be leaving Camp David and going to Wilmington, Delaware.
And his travel for next week, the Baltimore, New York travel obviously is infrastructure related and tunnel specific, Philadelphia on the economy, but they're obviously very blue cities. Why the focus on those three places next week? Why did you guys pick that?
Well, I think, First, I'm not going to get ahead of the president. He will lay out the importance of his travels to those particular tunnel and why he wanted to highlight those tunnels. So certainly not going to get ahead of him. Look, the bipartisan, remember, it's a bipartisan infrastructure legislation. We were in Kentucky in the beginning of the year, which was a bridge in Kentucky that was really important in the region. And we had, you saw Mitch McConnell, you saw a bipartisan effort of folks of elected officials who came together to talk about a bridge that for decades presidents had wanted to fix and have not been able.
Bridges. All right. So he's flying back for some reason. We don't really know why. We're going to hear from Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre gets a question from Peter Doocy. And as usual, we love Doocy time. He is bringing up a question or a point that John Kirby made, which we heard from earlier this week. John Kirby is the person who might be replacing Karine Jean-Pierre sometime soon. We'll see. But he is asking about something John Kirby said about this self-reporting thing that they're claiming the president did, even though they didn't. We're going to hear from him in a minute, right after we talk about our friends over at 4patriots.com, because as you know, food shortage could be coming, even here in the United States. We've got drought, inflation, new economic policies, war. Our food supply is getting close to its breaking point. That's why survival food is more important now than ever. And you can create your own stockpile of the best-selling 4Patriots survival food kits ever. It's not ordinary food. Good for 25 years, super survival food, hand-packed right in family-owned facilities in the United States, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. They are sturdy, compact, they stack easily. Many different delicious breakfast, lunches, and dinners. You can make them in less than 20 minutes. Just add boiling water, simmer, and serve. Even I can do it. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com. Use code Robert to save 10% off anything in the store, including a 3-month, 90-day survival kit. You'll get free shipping on anything over $97, plus their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order. They're called 4Patriots because a portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans. And you can go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert, save 10% off your first purchase, and start building your own stockpile today. All right, my friends. And now let's listen to what Peter Doocy had to say, because he always has fun, spicy questions for Karine. Peter Doocy wants to know why Joe Biden and the White House continue to say that they self-reported this document saga to us. They didn't. CBS broke the news, and then it all came unglued as soon as the story leaked. But why didn't they tell us in the first place?
Documents. Have any more classified documents been located in any places associated with President Biden?
I would refer you to the White House counsel's office.
Okay, and why do White House officials insist that the president self-reported the classified materials if his lawyers initially called the White House and not the Justice Department?
I would refer you to the White House counsel.
But we heard from this podium the other day that President Biden self-reported the materials. That's not exactly what happened.
Who did you hear that from?
John Kirby.
John Kirby?
I would refer you to the White House counsel.
What? What? Well, John Kirby said it. He's not the White House counsel, so why doesn't she bring John Kirby back out here so we can ask him that question? So Doocy tried to hit him with their own words, but she wasn't letting him have it. And so we will now turn our attention over to what's happening in Congress, because the White House doesn't want to talk about any of this stuff. Congress would love to know more, though. They are not being allowed access, unfortunately. Mark Warner and Marco Rubio, two senators, have said that they want access to know what Biden took, what were in the documents. And Mark Warner is a Democrat. Marco Rubio is a Republican. So this is a bipartisan request now. Doesn't America love unity and bipartisan requests? Are they going to get their hands on any of these documents and learn what's inside? Let's see. If we go over to the article here, they tell us that Biden officials block Senate Intelligence Committee from viewing the mishandling of the documents. What's going on with this article over here? Here it is. It says here by Joseph Clark over from the Washington Times. It tells us that Republican and Democratic senators have left a closed-door meeting on Wednesday with Avril Haines. She's the director of national intelligence, this woman you see here. So they met with her. Fuming is the word, that the Biden administration is withholding details about Biden and Trump's, so they want Trump stuff too, mishandled classified documents. They want to know, what did these people have? I'd like to know. Senator Mark Warner, who we're going to hear from next, he's a Virginia Democrat who he chairs the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, kind of the opposite of what the House of Representatives has, said the Office of DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, is blocking the release of key details of documents until the DOJ concludes its investigations. Says, I'm very disappointed with the lack of detail. Every member of the committee should get access to it, says Mark Warner. His frustrations were echoed by Marco Rubio from Florida. He said the administration is stonewalling and impeding our ability to provide oversight of the intelligence community. And I would love to know what documents Trump had. I would love to see what all of these documents are. Are they going to tell us? No, because they're classified, right? Top secret, national security, blah, blah, blah. Classified here and all the different layers of that, right? Top secret, whatever. So it is very unlikely we're going to know the actual content, but we do want to know at least like the categories. And in particular, whether they were categories that might involve conflicts of interest. Okay, I think that maybe Trump's, if they, for example, are letters from Kim Jong-un, these are just nice little love letters that are more like mementos. That might be different than Joe Biden taking some, intelligence briefing out that might be useful to Hunter for his sales emails to Burisma Ukraine business developments in that theater, right? One might be a conflict of interest, the other might not. One might be a national security document technically, but it's a non-conflicted national security document. The other, right, might be actually useful for nefarious purposes. That's why I want to know what the broad categories are. The ODNI has also not provided a risk assessment concerning the documents recovered in the raid. Ms. Haynes said in August the intelligence community would conduct a review. John Cornyn, Texas Republican on the committee, said Wednesday that the briefing raised questions about whether the ODNI had viewed documents. Says, my understanding is that the ODNI's position is that if the Attorney General says that this is, quote, an ongoing investigation, well, you cannot get access to those documents and that will stand. So let's listen to these two people explain it because they are upset that they're not getting access to this stuff. Here is Marco Rubio and Senator Warner explaining this with CBS News, asked about these meetings.
Oversight, bipartisan history, are going to unfortunately know. And this.
Start that over.
Do you have any timeline in terms of when you will get visibility into the documents of classified material that both President Biden and President Trump had in their residences?
We're going to unfortunately know. And this committee has had a long bipartisan history of doing its job. And our job here is intelligence oversight. The Justice Department has had the Trump documents about 6 months, the Biden documents about 3 months. Our job's not to figure out if somebody mishandled those, but our job is to make sure there's not an intelligence compromise. And while the Director of National Intelligence had been willing to brief us earlier, now that you've got the special counsel, the notion that we're going to be left in limbo and we can't do our job, that just cannot stand. And every member of the committee who spoke yesterday, and I wanted the director to hear this, regardless of party, said, we are united in we have to find a way to do our job. That means we need these documents. We need that assessment.
We'd all like to see what they are.
The intelligence community would say their hands are tied because this is an ongoing, active Justice Department investigation.
So what? Why can't the senators see it?
What would meet the level of addressing your concerns without compromising that?
Well, I don't know how congressional oversight on the documents, actually knowing what they are, in any way impedes an investigation.
Yeah, why?
These are probably materials we already have access to. We just don't know which ones they are. And it's not about being nosy. You know, here's the bottom line. If in fact those documents were very sensitive, materials were sensitive, and they pose a counterintelligence or national security threat to the United States, then the intelligence agencies are tasked with the job of coming up with ways to mitigate that.
And we'd like to know if there are conflicts of interest, if the president is compromised, if he was stealing, America's secrets. Trump too. I'd like to know if Trump was too. Okay, I doubt it, but I'd like to know. If he was selling secrets to the Russians or, exporting intelligence briefs to the Saudis or something, I would love to know that, wouldn't you? Same with Joe Biden. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion the reason they don't want you to know about Trump's documents is probably because they're nothing. The reason they don't want you to know about Biden's documents is probably because they're something. But they can use the same excuse for both of them, and it works. No, they're ongoing investigations, so we can't give you either of them, Because if we showed you Trump's, you'd know we were just joking with all of this. If we showed you Biden's, we know there's a big problem there, is what I would suspect. But of course, we'll continue to cover and see what else pops up with Joe Biden's documents. Thank you for liking this video and joining us wherever it is you're watching by subscribing, clicking the follow button, and making sure you stick around. So we look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, and so let's do our final segment here, where we're going to turn our attention over to Congress. The new Congress is in session. We've got a lot of activity to dig into, including talking about immigration in New York. We have updates on McCarthy's birthday. Elon stopped by. We've got news from Marjorie Taylor-Green and the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And then we're going to wrap up with the debt limit talk and Rand Paul promising, oh, there's going to be negotiations, all right. You're not getting your way with us. But first, let's take a look and wish happy birthday to America's newest leader of the House. Kevin McCarthy, evidently, was meeting with Elon. See him walking out of this newly labeled archway? Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. Ooh, I'm sure that one feels good, huh? So McCarthy drops that one, and he comes walking out. And apparently, in that room somewhere, or maybe leaving, was Tesla. Elon's Tesla.
Huh? What did you wish to discuss? He came to wish me happy birthday. Well, okay. Guys, give us room, please.
Did you hear him? He said Elon came to wish him a happy birthday. Well, hey, what did Elon come to talk to you about? He said, well, Elon, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? He came to wish me a happy birthday.
What did you wish to discuss? Huh? What did you wish to discuss? He came to wish me happy birthday. Well, okay. Guys,
what a nice guy. What a nice guy. Elon's a nice guy. He flies all the way out to Washington to wish Kevin McCarthy a happy birthday. Man, that's customer service right there. Well, Elon, Mr. Tweet, is in the house, and he explained what he did exactly. He says, all right, I flew in there. Yes, I was there. He says, I just met with Speaker McCarthy and Representative Jeffries to discuss ensuring that this platform is fair to both parties. That's what they were there for. So in addition to Elon flying out to wish him a happy birthday, they also discussed free speech on Twitter, man, which is great. We love to see that. So they are having conversations about that there. The White House wanted to know about that because apparently it wasn't on the schedule. Elon just sort of snuck in there and snuck out. Karine got asked about this. What was Elon doing over there at the White House, Karine?
Confirm a report by our friends at Reuters that Elon Musk met with Mitch Landrieu, the infrastructure coordinator here at the White House today about electric vehicles. What were they talking about? I know the White House hasn't always had the nicest things to say about Tesla and its labor practices.
So I can confirm that Mitch Landrieu and also John Podesta met with Elon Musk to discuss electrification and how the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act can advance EVs and increase the electrifications more broadly. So that meeting did happen today, and so for sure I can confirm that to all of you.
Mark, a turning of the page of the relationship between this White House and Elon Musk?
I will say that I think the outreach and the meeting says a lot of how important the president thinks the bipartisan infrastructure legislation is and how the Inflation Reduction Act is, especially as it relates to EVs and his commitment. And so I will leave it there, but I think it's important that his team, his senior members of his team had a meeting with Elon Musk today.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's amazing how they keep talking about, green energy and saving the planet and all this stuff, but they don't like the biggest person who's responsible for most progress in that space. There was a question about whether Elon actually met with Joe Biden. Turns out that didn't happen. This reporter asked about this.
Did Elon Musk request to meet with the president himself while he was in town this week?
Well, what I can tell you, I would refer you to Elon Musk. I don't have any request to share with you right now. What I can tell you is that he did not meet with the president. It was his two advisors, senior advisors, as I just laid out, John Podesta and Mitch Landrieu, who met with Elon Musk today. I just don't have anything else to share about who asked whom.
Following up, somewhat related to EVs.
So they're talking a lot about that over there, and Elon has been doing a ton of stuff. There was a very interesting thread that came out from this fella called Dave Rubin about what's going on over there at Twitter. And Paul Minot brought this to our attention over on our locals community. But here is what Dave Rubin was saying. He said, I spent the last 2 days over at Twitter in San Francisco talking to engineers. And so if you want to follow this, right, he actually details exactly what's going on. He said that Twitter is basically being rebuilt kind of from the ground up. They're working nonstop. He says, I met with Elon both times. They were after midnight. He says, I met with several engineers. They are working on a ton of stuff. There was all sorts of censorship that was taking place on these platforms. They had different secret labels for recent misinformation strike, recent suspension strike, and so on. Nobody knows what the heck it does. There were keyword databases. Dave Rubin, who happens to be a gay man, apparently was being censored because the word gay was on a list. Jordan Peterson was, being suspended and suppressed. They say that the whole situation looks like a dumpster fire rolling down the street. So right now, things are a little bit messy. They don't know when things are going to get better or how things necessarily work, but Dave Rubin's doing some good work over there, and David Sachs is also doing some good work over there. He is, of course, one of the besties on the All In Pod, which is a great podcast. And San Francisco, by the way, is disgusting as still. So, a lot of work is happening behind the scenes. Elon is busting his butt over there at Twitter, and he's also flying out to Washington, D.C. to wish Kevin McCarthy a happy birthday, which is, of course, a lot of fun. So we have that going on. Also in the House, we had a fun clip here from Trey Gowdy, who said that Adam Schiff is one of the biggest leakers of all time.
We'll talk about Schiff. For a decade, Adam Schiff has kept you from information that you should have had, like the dossier, the fact that it was used in a FISA filing, who paid for the dossier. He went to court, Sean, to keep you from finding out things that were true. And then on the other hand, remember the whistleblower that he met with but said he did not, the allegations of collusion. The reason the media is upset is because now the New York Times and the Washington Post and Politico are not on the Intelligence Committee. Because Adam Schiff was the most serial leaker that I served with. Jason may have another opinion, but he was a serial leaker, which means those news entities now are not getting the information that they never should have gotten in the first place.
Yeah, so is there going to be, very interesting new changes in how this media landscape looks. We've got, Elon Musk enters the game. He's talking about free speech. Schiff is not leaking to the media anymore. We've got all sorts of new infrastructure being built. A lot of fun. We'll continue to see what happens as that relationship continues to percolate. Elsewhere, we have other activity. AOC reaches out from New York, or I think it's actually Washington, D.C. Even though she says she's in New York, she's actually in Washington, D.C. She comes out talking about immigration. You see the Capitol building looks like it's behind her. Let's listen.
Yes, and thank you so much, Senator Menendez, for your leadership.
Audio's a little bit dead. Let's pull that back up. Here is the audio button.
Yes, and thank you so much, Senator Menendez, for your leadership on this issue. And we're so grateful that this is a bicameral effort. Thank you so much to all of our colleagues here in the House and the Senate. This is what makes us different, is that, whoa.
Windy.
This is what makes us different, is that, thank you so much, is that we are willing to hold administrations accountable for the rights of immigrants and immigrant families, regardless of party or allegiance. Right is right, and our main allegiance is to the families, immigrant and U.S. citizen families of the United States. So thank you to our co-leads here, Senators Menendez, Padilla, Lujan, and Booker, and Representatives Casar and Grijalva for co-leading on this, as well as our members here joining as 77 members total of the House and Senate, additionally who have signed on to our letter, up to 80, as Senator Menendez had indicated. Last year, President Biden promised to end Title 42. Instead, he is now expanding restrictions on asylum seekers. But the right to seek asylum is enshrined in domestic and international law.
Calling
and the
out
United
Biden.
States is a shining example. And we have sought and aspired to be an example to uphold international law. Instead, this administration is making it effectively impossible to seek refuge at our border.
Wow.
The courts rightly rejected.
She wants more immigration?
The Trump administration's attempt to categorically end asylum. President Biden should listen to the courts and human rights activists and reverse course. There can be no confusing the Biden administration's immigration policy with the Trump administration's.
Whoa!
But doing better than Trump doesn't mean it shouldn't be the bar. Thousands of lives are being put in real danger every day. There have been more than 10,000 violent attacks on people at our border, including kidnappings, serious assaults, and deaths against individuals who were expelled due to Title 42 since the beginning of the Biden administration.
Yeah, by incentivizing them to come to the border, all it's doing is causing additional harm and additional hardship and death and pain and suffering. She's describing it right there for us. And so let's take a look now at what James Comer wants to do. He sent a letter over to the Department of Homeland Security. Remember, James Comer is on the brand shiny new Committee on Oversight and Accountability. They wrote a letter today, January 27, 2023, from the House of Representatives over to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, to the Honorable, so-called, Alejandro Mayorkas, the man responsible for the catastrophe at the border. Dear Secretary Mayorkas, writes James Comer, he says, all right, listen, buddy. On January 19th, I invited Chief Patrol agents of 4 U.S. Border Patrol sectors, 4 people, to testify at a hearing the week of February 6th. As I wrote these invitations, I said, quote, this hearing will examine the crisis on the southwest border and will enable members of Congress to obtain essential information to learn about border operations. Yet, instead of working to facilitate the testimony of those 4 professionals, your organization, DHS, is refusing to permit the 4 invited patrol agents to appear and provide testimony. Mayorkas is not letting them show up. DHS, he says, is obstructing congressional oversight. Comer says DHS pays lip service to its own internal protocols in making this determination, footnote 4. Referencing their own documents. Here is the 4 people who were listed. Chief Patrol agents. Oh, he's actually listing all of the different letters that he sent previously. He says, and even argues that it is DHS's prerogative, not Congress's, to determine for congressional committees who would be appropriate witnesses. All right, so Congress and Comer, they say, we want to interview these 4 people from your agency, Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol. And they say, no, actually, we get to tell you what witnesses we'll provide to you. Don't ask us who you want to interview. We'll tell you who you can interview. DHS's internal protocols are not binding on Congress, says Comer, and it's irrelevant whether DHS disagrees with the committee's determination that these 4 law enforcement professionals should testify at a hearing. Taken to its logical conclusion, the arguments advanced by DHS would render most federal officials in the executive branch completely immune from testifying and providing essential information to Congress. It is unfortunate that you are trying to prevent the American people from hearing candid and truthful testimony from U.S. Border Patrol chief agents. Comer says this is necessary oversight, which you and your department are attempting to block. The Committee on Oversight and Accountability is the principal oversight committee, and we have authority to investigate any matter at any time under House Rule 10. Therefore, Comer says, listen, I reiterate my request for 4 U.S. Border Patrol chief agents to testify at a committee hearing on February 7th. I request you confirm their attendance no later than January 31st. Man, I'm going to have to start a calendar and start tracking all these dates because Comer is like firing off letters like every other day with new dates and new deadlines and new requests. Shout out to James Comer, Committee on Oversight and Accountability, just demanding answers. And this is great, right? Because we saw this. We covered many of these stupid letters. I mean, you know, I like them when they're from our side more. But we covered many of these letters from the J6 committee and all of their dumb select committees when they were in charge. So yeah, fire them up, send them out. What else? What else are you going to do with your time? Send them out, demand, and if they don't show up, well, maybe you should issue subpoenas just like they did when they were in charge. So we can see new activity going on in the immigration field as well. And we have more going on in Congress. And so let's turn our attention now over to Marjorie Taylor-Green. Marjorie Taylor-Green. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve was drained by the Biden administration. Marjorie introduced an amendment that aims to refill them by sort of tying Biden's hands and forcing him to refill them. Here's what Rep. Marjorie Taylor-Green posted on Twitter. She says, Joe Biden has destroyed the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, sold it all to China. That's your oil, America. This morning, she said on January 27th at 8:30 a.m., she wrote, this morning, the House passed my amendment to force Joe Biden to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to the level it was on his first full day in office. So she's going to go from this day all the way back retroactively to day one of the Biden administration and say, fill up the tank, buddy boy.
Mr. Chair, plans are extremely important, but unfortunately, our president has given us no plan on how he will replace all of the oil, very important oil that has been sold out of our Strategic Petroleum Reserve. You know, the American people are trapped on a journey in this country. The American people work hard every single day and pay their taxes, and their taxes have been abused. Their tax dollars were used to fill up the supply in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And in 2 years' time, this president has sold out America by selling our Strategic Petroleum Reserves and creating a national security crisis for all of America. I'm introducing an amendment today that will require a leasing plan from day one of President Biden's presidency,
all the way
inauguration day, when this bill is enacted into law. President Biden will have to come up with a plan to tell the American people how he will clean up his mess and refill America's SPR. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, and I yield back.
Nice. So that looks like it passed. We'll see if that goes anywhere. Obviously, the Democrats are still in control of the Senate, and so, you know, this stuff has consequences, and we'll see if anything comes from it. But we have another clip here from Ted Lieu. Ted Lieu is a Democrat, and he is opposing this amendment. He's saying, look, you know, the president should really just kind of be able to do whatever the heck he wants, whenever he wants.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment would create an exception allowing for a drawdown of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve if the Secretary determines that the drawdown will result in a net profit for the United States. So let me tell you what this is all about. I can summarize this debate of the last 2 days into one sentence. Joe Biden lowered your gas prices, and Republicans are upset about it. That's what this is about. Joe Biden lowered your gas prices last year, and that makes Republicans mad.
It's not the fact that the gas prices were lowered there, Ted. It's the fact that they were lowered by draining something called, listen to this phrase, called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which means that it is there for a strategic reason. Some might call that strategy. And when you sort of dip your straw into that and drain it out to try to artificially decrease the cost of gas in the months before an election, that doesn't seem like a good national strategy. Not very strategic for the nation's defense and the nation's needs. That's why we have the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Now, if Republicans did that, you'd also have a problem with that. Rightfully so. Everybody would be upset about that. Republicans are not upset about the low gas prices. If the Democrats agreed with the Republicans and decided to drill, baby, drill, and drill hard, drill fast, drill with incredible depth and girth, then, you know, low gas prices would be welcomed and everybody would be very happy about that. But that's not what they did.
How do we know? They said it out loud. The gentlewoman from Georgia earlier this morning just said that Joe Biden lowered your gas prices for political reasons. You know, I don't care why a president lowers your gas prices. If any president can lower your gas prices, we should support that president's action.
That's it. That's their argument. If they can just lower your gas prices, it doesn't matter how. Aren't these people like green energy psychopaths too?
And if prices surge later this year, if gas prices surge again, Joe Biden should be able to use the tools at his disposal and lower your gas prices again. We should be giving the president even more flexibility to use the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to lower your gas prices.
Whatever.
Joe Biden lowered your gas prices. The Republicans want to keep him from doing that again.
It has nothing to do with anything else. If he can lower your gas prices, it doesn't matter where the gas comes from, okay? You've got lower gas. I don't care.
We don't want to stop the president from lowering your gas prices. We want Joe Biden to lower your gas prices again if he could do that. But there's another reason this Republican bill is so stupid. Because not only did Joe Biden lower your gas prices, the United States of America made a profit on it. Buy low, sell high. It was brilliant what Joe Biden did. He released the Strategic Petroleum Reserve at prices when gases were high, and that's helped lower the gas prices, and then he refilled it at the lower amount. The U.S. made $4 billion on Joe Biden's action. Republicans always want to say, well, let's run government like a business. Joe Biden did exactly that when he lowered your gas prices. Gosh. And then made a $4 billion profit for the United States of America.
This guy is something else. He has no idea what he's talking about. It's just amazing. Well, you know, it's like, so he released the oil in order to lower the gas prices, right? So it's like he's missing the whole causality component of that. And then when the whole world is sort of skidding into a recession now, he's saying, well, we're going to buy it back when it's cheaper. All right, I guess. And he's going to make a profit. Are they going to sell that oil to somebody else? It's a profit for the country, I guess. So do they need to tax us now if they're so smart and profitable? Are they going to tax us? Do they need to tax us? Why don't they just make all profit? Why don't they just turn a profit by creating something useful like gold? They could never do that because they're idiots. But the people at Goldco are not. Because, my friends, if you have an IRA or a 401k or a savings account, well, you know that things are pretty scary out there. The Biden administration has printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt hit a record $30 trillion. Inflation's the highest we've seen since the 1980s. It's only a matter of time until the house of cards comes crashing down. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk. Talk to my friends over at Goldco to see how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. Go to robertlikesgold.com. They'll give you $10,000 or more in free silver when you open up a qualifying account over at robertlikesgold.com. They are an A+ rated business with the Better Business Bureau, and they're good friends of the show. So thanks for checking out my friends at Goldco, where you can also feel fabulous with your gold, protecting your savings. Now, in addition to this debate, we're having conversations about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and AOC is very unhappy about this. Apparently, some congressperson told her she needed to educate herself, and she didn't like that comment at all.
Recognized for 5 minutes. And I yield to the gentlewoman from New York.
Thank you. Thank you to Ranking Member Pallone. You know, I understand in this body it's not the first time that it seems as though the opposing side can't seem to be able to debate the issue. And so they must come after my character. While I cannot control the fact that the other side seems to have made the assumption that I am uneducated, one of the things that I can say, or you know what they may say about my worldview, one of the things that I can say is that while I may not work for Wall Street, that is true. I may not be here with the mission to increase profits for corporations. That is true. My mission here is for the well-being and dignity of our family and our planet's future, for our children's ability to live on this planet. That is what this amendment is about.
Oh.
Moreover, when we talk—
So if that amendment passes, her children are not going to be able to live on this planet? Oh, great. It passed. It passed. So what's she going to do now? Her kids are going to die. Marjorie said it passed, so I guess all her kids are dead. It's probably your kids, too. They're all going to die now.
That is true. My mission here is for the well-being and dignity of our family and our planet's future.
And they have no dignity.
For our children's ability to live on this planet. That is what this
They're all
amendment
gonna
is
die.
about. Moreover, when we talk about education, we should all take it upon ourselves in this body to educate ourselves on the science.
What is the science?
Of the challenge of climate change that is before us.
Otherwise,
That
your
on
kids will die.
2050, we are looking at the western states to be projected to further increase, wildfires to further increase 2 to 6 times.
Oh, no.
And that is
That's
just
us.
scratching the surface.
That's us.
Thank you, and I yield back to the ranking member.
We're going to have 2 to 6 times more wildfires in Arizona because of Marjorie's amendment. And your kids are going to die without dignity, too. That's a terrible way to go. All right, so Biden wants to weigh in on this. He's talking about climate change issues as well. Here's what he said about climate change. If you have any doubts that climate change is a real thing, our president's going to clear that up for you because You know, some people, for some reason, are still rejecting this climate change science, but our president's going to solve that for you right now.
Change the biggest investor ever to deal with the climate crisis we face. And by the way, if you hold a second, if you don't think we have a climate crisis, come travel with me around the country.
All right.
No, I'm not joking. Go back. Go back. And here we are.
Go back where?
Travel around the country.
Go back to where, Joe?
With me around the country. No, I'm not joking. Go back.
Where?
Go back. And here we are. Travel around investor ever to deal with the climate crisis we face. And by the way, if you hold a second, if you don't think we have a climate crisis, come travel with me around the country. No, I'm not joking. Go back. Go back.
All right. Well, yeah, they're called seasons, Joe. It's currently winter, but it's not always going to be winter. It will change into other seasons. Hopefully somebody will educate him as the rest of the spring, summer, and fall hit, because holy moly, White House may be in for a big surprise. But we will, of course, continue to see what they come out with on that topic. And then lastly, we have a debt limit debate. You probably have heard a lot about this. The Biden administration is saying they are not going to be negotiating with Republicans. Why should they? They say that whatever they want in terms of a budget and a debt limit and endless spending for endless reasons should be theirs. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre explaining that when asked about it.
If the Republicans in the House do present a plan for conditions for what they would raise the debt limit under, will you start negotiations with them on that plan? What would be the point of them presenting you with a list of demands?
Well, what I'm saying is they want to cut, but they're just saying this rhetoric that's incredibly dangerous, that is very dangerous to the full credit and of our country, right? You think about the debt ceiling, you think about the debt limit. We're talking about debt that has been racked up by Congress, right? But we continue to say this should be done when it comes to the debt limit, the debt ceiling, it should be done without condition. That doesn't change
without
anything.
any conditions.
I'm just laying out how they're proceeding here. It's such in a reckless way. And so we're
by asking for less spending and to stop spending money that the country doesn't have.
just calling that out, but it doesn't change where we stand. It doesn't change the fact that we are not going to negotiate here.
Wow.
This is something that should be dealt with like it has
We're not
been
negotiating.
many times before. In the last administration, three times.
Do you hear that?
This should be done when it comes to the debt limit, the debt ceiling. It should be done without condition. That doesn't change anything. I'm just laying out how they're proceeding here. It's such in a reckless way. And so we're just calling that out. But it doesn't change where we stand. It doesn't change the fact that we are not going to negotiate here.
We are not going to negotiate here. Well, guess what? Rand Paul doesn't buy that for a minute. He says, you sure will, my friend. Here is what he said.
President Biden says he won't negotiate over raising the debt ceiling. I have news for him. He absolutely will negotiate. Conservatives will not vote to raise the debt ceiling. The majority in the House, Republican majority in the House, will not vote to raise the debt ceiling without significant budget reform. The greatest threat to our country is, and the greatest threat to our national security is the debt. One of the great things about where we are now, though, is it really doesn't take as much as you would think to actually balance the budget. In Europe, over half of the countries balance their annual budget. We think of Europe, of Germany and Sweden, of having these large governments, and they do, but they're actually fiscally responsible in the sense that they spend what comes in. We could do it in our country.
Yeah.
If we were to have a $100 billion cut, which would still have us spending way more than we spent before COVID, a $100 billion cut and free spending, we would balance our budget in just 4 years.
4 years!
This is amazing. We have an opportunity here. It could be done, but it would take compromise between both parties. Republicans would have to give up the sacred cow that says we will never touch a dollar in military.
Oh, great.
And the Democrats would have to give up the sacred cow that they will never touch a dollar in welfare. Everything would have to be looked across the board. No one has a sacred area that would be immune. And when you make the cuts across the board, they aren't as big as you'd actually think they would be. It's a responsible thing to do, but President Biden needs to know Absolutely, he will negotiate, and it's better to start now.
Yeah, buddy boy Biden, you better get ready for some negotiation. Here's a letter that came in from the Republicans. They're very unhappy about this as well. Here's what they said. January 27th, from the United States Senate in Washington, D.C. The letter goes over to the Honorable Joe Biden at the White House. They say, "Dear President Biden," and you're wondering who's drafting this. It's a bunch of these senators, and some of these people you'll remember. Some names you can tease out of here. It looks like Joni Ernst. We've got Rand Paul's right here, Mike Braun, so on and so forth. See if you can tease out some of these other names. But here's what they said to the president. They write, "All right, dear Joe Biden, President." They say, "We, the undersigned members of the Senate Republican Conference, write to express our outright opposition to a debt ceiling hike without real structural spending reform that reduces deficit spending and brings fiscal sanity back to Washington. It is the policy of the Senate Republican Conference that, quote, any increase in the debt ceiling must be accompanied by cuts in federal spending of an equal or greater amount as the debt ceiling increase or meaningful structural reform such as the Prevent Government Shutdown Act or the Full Faith and Credit Act." They say, "We intend to stand by that policy." Our nation's fiscal policy, they say, is a disaster. Our country owes $31 trillion, just like I tell you when I talk about Goldco. A level of debt that now well exceeds the size of our economy. Inflation is making life more expensive for American families every single day. Meanwhile, your administration is directing federal agencies to continue to spend billions in taxpayer resources, expanding the size and the scope of the IRS to go after families and small businesses, policing the speech of Americans on social media, funding equity programs in the military, pouring money into programs for a pandemic that your administration has already declared over. Americans are keenly aware that their government is not only failing to work for them, but actively working against them. We do not intend to vote for a debt ceiling increase without structural reforms to address current and future fiscal realities, actually enforce the budget spending rules on the books, and manage out of control government policies. Sincerely, your friends, the Republicans from the Senate, Rand Paul, and others signing off on this. So that looks fun. We'll see if the White House does negotiate, if there's any compromise, or what will happen as this story unfolds. I hope you join us. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing wherever it is you're watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. And that, my friends, is it for the show on the day. And so we covered a lot of ground. We got some good updates on Congress, heard from Marjorie, heard from AOC. Elon wished a happy birthday. We've got the ODNI not giving Congress any information. David Axelrod says the Democrats are in disarray. The White House is responding to the Tyre Nichols video, and the White House is issuing warnings, bracing for impact. The video has now been released, and so we'll wait to see what the weekend has for us. Hopefully it's nonviolent and very peaceful out there. Only time will tell. But now let's see what you have to say, my friends over on YouTube and our friends on Rumble and our friends on Twitter, before we jump over to our locals after party, which is where we'll be here in a short minute or two. But let's take a look at some of these super chats that came in. Thank you, everybody, for being so generous here today. I see several of them. First one is from Voice of the People. Says, "I'm going to watch the footage and give my thoughts on all of this tomorrow. There is a problem brewing in Memphis, Tennessee, as well as the footage coming tonight, too. Another summer of love may be coming." All right, so that's over from Voice of the People. So you might want to check out that YouTube channel because they're going to go through that in detail, talking about the Tyre Nichols case. And there was another one out of, I think we saw it in Georgia today, right? So there's sort of two competing deaths, unfortunately. And I think Georgia declared a state of emergency as well. So Voice of the People, shout out to that channel. Go follow that channel. Here you see Patty Boyer. Thank you very much, Patty, for the dono. No question on that one, but thank you very much, Patty, for sending that in. Devin says, "Is the video public?" It is now. Yeah, it is now. So that now is hit. CNN officially made it, but probably not when you sent that. But thank you for sending it in, Devin. STFU-FFS says, "Roland Fryer at Harvard in 2017 published a paper called Radical Differences in Police Use of Force. The link is in Locals that found zero racism in policing." Yeah, I mean, it's a very complex topic, and I get so irritated by it because I think if you make everything about racism injustice, you can't fix the primary underlying problems. It makes me so mad. Anyways, yeah, and I think that it's just like a convenient excuse for everybody to use. Everything's just racist. Okay, well, if you just say that, then we can't fix anything, man. It's good to see you, STFU. Fred Petamonte is here. Oh, his dog is here. Robert, my dog jumped on the bed again today and said, I identify as non-binary, gender fluid, and vegan. I'm also Jewish and a Chewini. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, man. Was your dog hanging out with Karine Jean-Pierre or something? What's going on over there? That dog, man. What kind of material is he getting into in that household? First, I thought he was like hanging out with Putin. Now he's gender fluid and vegan. And he's not a Chewini anymore. Oh my gosh. I don't know what to do about that one. You got your hands full over there, Fred. That puppy is up to some very interesting affairs. Thank you for sending that one in. And if you're not familiar with Fred, I mean, yesterday, just to show you, like yesterday his dog accidentally bought, not accidentally, secretly, purchased $25,000 worth of gold from Goldco. This dog is like really smart. Yet the day before, the dog was working with Russian intelligence, which is really scary, but he's going to go hang out with Edward Snowden. And the dog found classified papers back on Monday. So it's just out of control at that household. Now it's gender fluid now. So I guess, I don't know what to call your puppy anyways. All right, so shout out to Fred. We had another one coming in from Bruce. Says, lost one. Wait, that was from yesterday. This one came in from Bruce. Says, welcome, Legion. About 17 reasons I like this chat. Salty Legion. I think that's what that says. Salty Legion is in the house. About 17 reasons I like this chat. French fries, steak, lobster, crab, and beer. Shout out to Bruce. We're glad that you're here, Bruce. STFU says, apparently MTG is causing arson on the West Coast. That's true. It's true. Yeah, she's burning down everything. And Dems against reckless spending equals thieves versus robbery. Yeah, it's just, it's like a joke. Come on. Are there any real spending limits? The debt ceiling goes up every stinking year. They need to do it. It's just like an automatic thing. They just like to sort of like make believe play fight with us. It's like the WWE. Chris Wolney, what's up, Chris? Says the debt ceiling is dangerous. The climate is dangerous. Speech is dangerous. Everything is dangerous. So sick of all the hyperbole already. Vomit anger faces. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Chris. Everything's going to kill you. The government needs to protect everything. Republicans will kill you because of the debt. The Republicans will kill you because of climate. The Republicans will kill you because of misinfo and disinfo and everything they say. And trust us, we'll fix everything for you. We just need to raise your taxes, and we need you to take this stuff and inject it into your body. Yeah, that's from Chris. Good to see you, Chris. It irritates me too. Can we just harden up a little bit out there? All right. So those were from our friends over on YouTube. Let's see what the Rumble crew is saying over there. We've got a nice chatting away over there. What's up, everybody? Let me say hello to Mario O, Jacob Castro. We got Seth Covington's over there. I see Larry 1, Vienticus, Anything's in the house, along with Seth Covington, Lil Galaxy. Says, stop calling it a budget. They have a ceiling. Yeah, all right. Would I call it a budget? It's all this. It's money. Just spending money, I guess, is the point. I know. My language is a little bit loosey today. A little bit loose today. It's Friday. I start to get a little tired as the week ends up. And that's just how it goes, unfortunately. But thank you to our Rumble friends. Let's queue up our Twitter friends and see what's going on over on Twitter. Because we had, I think, some viewers today. 7 right now. We had over 200. I saw a screenshot from Paul Minot that we had over 200 viewers on Twitter. We're down to 7 now. It's kind of hard to stick around and watch on Twitter. But let's see who is over here. Andy P, who is a great follow, by the way. Andy P made a great video on the Project Veritas video, the Pfizer video. All right, so we are doing a quick scroll through, and we're going to see what the Twitter thread has for us. If you want to come check us out, it's over at robgoveaesq.com. You can see it's right here. That was me snapping away a little bit ago. But here, Andy P., who made a great video about the Pfizer stuff, says the following: it's hard to get police reform when the left is unwilling to meet the right halfway on police unions. Great point. Yeah, great point. Yeah, a lot of these things are bureaucratic nightmares. Quote of the day: aren't these people green energy psychopaths too? Did I say that? They are, right? Aren't they? Yeah, that was Ted Lieu. He was talking about all the he was talking about all of the free gas. And they are green energy psychopaths, yeah. Vientikis says so much happening today. That's true. Oh, Paul Mino is here. Look at that, 203 viewers. That's out of control. It's getting crazy. And we're talking about, you know, what happens if Twitter merges with Rumble as a video platform, or if Twitter merges with Locals, you know, and sort of has a community platform as well. Could be some pretty exciting stuff coming up here. Are these available in your store yet? No, they're not there yet. This is going to be my new Affirmations single audiobook. Affirmations with Robert Gouveia, coming soon to an Audible near you. Thank you, Sleepy Dog. Here's another one. Says Paul, accurate, MAGA, money. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, and so I always forget to like these. Make sure you're liking your fellow tweets out here on our tweet threads. Support your fellow watchers out here and like those tweets, baby. All right, so yes, that's about, I think, accurate. Yeah, they want money and they don't really necessarily care about politics. Paul Mino says, when life gives you a lemon, switch the channel. That's a good meme for our friend Don Lemon. We had another one come in from Donna. This one looks like it is a meme involving Elon. Here's one from Elon. Bond, James Bond, tweet, Mr. Tweet. Several of those. Donna says, I'd rather eat Field of Greens with a big juicy steak than bugs. And we got a couple others. Here's one from Donna. This is a great one. This is Spider-Man. This is the White House right now. John Kirby is pointing over to the White House Counsel. White House Counsel is pointing over to Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre is pointing over to John Kirby and the White House Counsel's office. Only thing that would make that better if there was, you know, a DOJ in there too. That's a fun one. Here, Sleepy Dog Lee shared this one. This is the one, Always Buy Gold, from Robert. Yeah, Always Buy Gold on the mind map. That's a Sleepy Dog Lee meme. Love that one. Donna said 35 people were on Twitter. Out of control. Yeah, it's hard to stick around on Twitter. CA Human says, greetings, everybody. Happy Friday. Poor forest management. Danny's in the house. Says China is still on the news, but it's on the second page. Says Elon is a free speech warrior of our time. Barbara says, watching The Watchers has quickly become my favorite. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Ricada Law, for introducing me to your channels. Ricada Law is a great channel. I love watching Nick's stuff. It's a lot of fun. Ted, and he just did an interview with Rittenhouse that I have saved for this weekend that I'm looking forward to watching. Ted Lieu must have supported the Iraq war too. Well, there's a lot of oil over there. Yeah, right. A lot of oil. And so anything that makes your gas lower is fair game. TJ is here. This is a fun one on the Pfizer. This is a Project Veritas one. Can you keep a secret? Says the Pfizer guy, enamored in love. Can you keep a secret? Yes. And then the mask is the same face, except it's colorful. Oh, it's just great. All right. So let's see what else we have over here. Memphis. Violent crimes show that there's an average of 1,900 per 100,000 in Memphis crimes. Kamala Harris posted out the bail fund. Kamala loves to support certain types of protests. And TJ says maybe Donald Trump should be on Mount Rushmore. All right. And so those were from our friends over on Twitter. And of course, come and join us on Twitter and follow your fellow watchers so that we can continue to build this community and rebuild our informational supply chains so that we can succeed as we carry on with our work. All right. And so that was over from Twitter. We said hello to our friends on YouTube. Let's check out our amazing community on locals. We're going over here for our after party. But Don't Be Hatin' sent this tip in and says, why does it seem like, quote, classified just means the government did something bad and doesn't want us to see? Isn't that the kind of stuff that we need to know to vote appropriately? Well, certainly Don't Be Hatin', I would say the stuff that is like the conflict of interest stuff, right? Like there's some classified material, obviously, that I don't think would be, appropriate for general public dissemination. Like that just seems obvious. But the conflict stuff, like if Joe Biden took Ukraine documents and gave those to Hunter and he made money off those, yeah, we should definitely know about that stuff. All right. And so you can see we're going to do a refresh over here, my friends, and there's going to be an after party that takes place at our members only forum, which is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Look at all these comments we're about to go through. And so if you want to come and join us, the best place to do that is at that website, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And so we're going to head on over there right now for our after party. And so I hope you come and join us. Before we get out of here, I want to remind you to consider our sponsors if you happen to need something from them, including survival food and survival gear. You can go to 4patriots.com, use code Robert, 10% off your first purchase. Same thing with Goldco. You can go over there if you like gold. I do. You can check out what I think about it at robertlikesgold.com. Protect your retirement with gold and silver. Makes you feel fabulous and glimmering. You also have Brickhouse Nutrition, which is where you can get your Field of Greens and a ton of other like really cool stuff. Field of Greens will give you your vegetables, your fruits, a lot of good vitamins, keep you healthy, energized, and you can save 15% there using code Robert. Also, look at this. I mean, it's just you're just bursting, exploding with energy. Also, check out our law firm if you happen to know anybody in the state of Arizona that needs help and has been charged with a crime. We help good people find safety, clarity, and hope online at rrlawaz.com. All right, and my friends, I want to thank all the mods who mod down the fort for us, along with our meme smiths. Ultra shout outs go to VNT Kiss Prime. We've got K-Bean, Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Lean. We've got Ronnie Cole, Zulu, and our meme smith, Sleepy Dogly, on Twitter. Always a good follow. And Geomancy comes by from time to time. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day and a long, busy week. We're going to have a lot more to get to next week. We'll see what the news has in store for us. But until then, my friends, I hope that you enjoy your weekend, unplug from politics a little bit, get outside, get some fresh air, some of that sunshine and vitamin D, and unplug from politics, because we're going to have to recharge our batteries and come back here on Monday and do it all again, because there's going to be much more work to attend to. And I hope to see you here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Have a tremendous evening, my friends, and a tremendous weekend. And I will see you right back here on Monday. Make it a great night. Bye-bye, everybody.